Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Supercoach Challenges, and tonight we're going to have a quick look through the teams and just discuss some of the main outs from and main changes to those teams and how they might affect your Supercoach teams going into round 8. I haven't had a real good look. I have gone through a little bit and seen a few changes that have happened. But there are some important things to discuss, some important changes to lineups, and be interesting to see how this affects the teams over the weekend. But first, before we go into that, I know that there are quite a few of you out there who do watch my videos, and it'd be great if you could hit that subscribe button because, yeah, it's free and it just helps us creators know that we're actually talking to people and be able to create a community for us to talk with as well. I really enjoy responding to the comments of the people who have commented on here. I hope I have been able to give you some good information that you've been able to use to create your teams or pick your teams. But yeah, it would just be good to see some more people join the community. So hit that subscribe and follow along because it's still a long season. We're only a third of the way, and it'll be good to hear from some new and different people. Adds more to my content as well, being able to talk to more people and get some questions in to answer. Anyway, back into the video after that little speech. So looking at the teams this week, we look at Carlton, Brisbane first, and nothing real different here. I guess Jesse Motlop's in, Harry Sharp's in. I think Sharp might be a Sharp is actually a debutant, which is nice. Not really sure about his job security going forward, but could be something good for us. And it's good to see some debutants coming along. I think looking through the teams, there were a few different debutants that have come in, which is good to see. And Harry Sharp is good to have him, but with Rich and Zorko both out injured, I'm not sure how long he keeps his spot in the team. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. For Carlton, not much different. We do see that McKenna is lining up on the halfback flank, which we really like. With Rich out, we're hoping that he gets his scoring up a bit. With Carlton, looks like Sard and Doherty are fine off their injuries, which is good. Sard was just subbed out probably to manage him. And not really much has changed here. They're both really going in with their normal lineup that they've been playing. Wilmot's on the bench, not on a wing though. So far, we're hoping that he gets a bit more of a go down back as well. And otherwise, looking pretty good there. Ollie Holland's on the bench. Brody Kemp also, he had quite a good score last week, but I think he's 200k ish. Defender forward, so there could be some usage, but in teams, but I think he's probably going to be a skip for most of us. I'll just double check that. I'm pretty sure Kemp is 100-ish, 245. So, I mean, he could go big and he could do the Chase Jones, but is a bit of a risk to take. Now, looking at the Richmond side, we have got Dion Press here back in. You go Rouse Smith and Jack Graham. So no one new there, but the big one that's out for a few teams would be Tyler Young. Looks like he's injured, not omitted, but not great for those who are trying to get an emergency score out of him on the bench. It does look like that Liam Baker will be playing back there, though, in the halfback. So for holders of him, you may be able to give him another week instead of trading. Halfback is where he does normally score well. And him and Dan Rioli could clean up quite well against West Coast, but it also might not go down there. So that's another thing to kind of keep an eye on. The problem with Young now is it might be hard for him to get back in the team. I believe that Tarrant wasn't too far away in the VFL. And I also think Gibkiss was getting a run, maybe a half in the VFL as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he will actually be able to get back into the team. Looks like it's come at an inopportune time for holders of Tyler Young. So not great for them. On the West Coast side, it's just Dom Sheed back in. Bazo injured, so if you brought him in for whatever reason, that's no good. And Pacheski Seaton's out on suspension. Interestingly, Campbell Chess is in the emergencies. Looks like he could be going to be named sub, which isn't great for his scoring. His scoring was already bad, so um, might be something that you want to keep an eye on. Anyway, moving forward from there, not much different with their lineups. It doesn't look like Jimby's still playing on the wing, so that's probably good for Jimby Omis that he hasn't lost, hasn't been rested, still a warm body. Samson Ryan named for pocket. Hopefully, he starts to get played in that ruck a bit more. And can Richmond just drop Ben Miller so that Samson Ryan just plays there as a mainstay? That's where he scores big, and he's shown that over the past few rounds that when he's in the ruck, that's where we get the big scoring from him. But doesn't look like they're going to change that up anytime soon. Moving down to Geelong and the Crows. So Johnny Segler's in, which is interesting for that ruck. And Zach Tui as well, who's just coming in and replacing Jack Bowes as a straight 1-for-1. Tom Stewart playing off that back line. And with Radigalia should be nice for those holders still. As we saw last week with the Crows, they did like to bomb it into their forward line a little bit last year. So could be very interesting to see if the same will happen for this week for Stewart. There is talk, obviously, that Ben Keys will get a tagging role. But apart from that, Stewart can probably still get the ball. It does look like Keys has been named in the followers, and even though the Crows are unchanged, and Sam De Koning is out, which is also interesting for the Geelong's back line kind of structure, but even though Rory Laird is named, it could be that he is a late out, which could mean that Keys is required a bit more in the midfield, which could mean that Tom Stewart is released from that. I think that he's still a good VC option because I think, if you look at the Crows' goal kicking, although it might be something that they're going to try and, repair this week, they did kick a lot of behinds last week, which are just free disposals for Tom Stewart. And if you combine that with the kicks in there and being at GHMBA, I think it could be a very good scoring game for Tom Stewart. Not really much different here to talk about. I guess another thing is that Simpson looks like he's named. Is Simpson named in here? Or has he been? Oh, yeah. Simpson's on the exchange, so that's good. Whether he keeps that spot when the other guys are back is interesting. I think, can we assume that Tanner Bruin is behind Simpson maybe in the pecking order? Or is he going to play himself into it? Because we did see that Bruin could play quite well in the preseason, and is he going to be able to play himself into a role that puts him ahead of Simpson? Maybe. I think Stengel is probably more of a 1-for-1 with Simpson, but be interested to see if he can keep. At 160k, it's a bit of a risk, especially with the job security. You probably want to just take that 40k and go for maybe an Angwin or even hold till next week, because it does look like we might have a few rookies, like even a few more good ones coming through. So, bit of a decision to be made. Now, looking at the Crows, obviously there's no real change here, so not much to talk about. Just keep an eye on Rory Laird and whether he'll be not drops, but taken out last minute, because Matt Crouch is there, so that suggests that they're not quite fully in on Rory Laird actually making it. Going down to Gold Coast, so it does look like Gold Coast are a bit undecided on what they're going to do with their team. Interestingly enough, Constable still can't get a game even with Weller going out, which is really annoying. It looks like Holman's also out, and I'd suggest he plays off the back line as well. Really, really frustrating because Constable has been dominating the VFL. Like his game last week was better than Flanders. He's been playing better than Flanders for most of the VFL matches. So it's just kind of annoying that he didn't really get named. But yes, those things happen. And yeah, Flanders back in. Probably going to get the role now that we wish he had at the start of the year and actually score well. 250k. I think he has quite a fairly big break even because he went out in an injury game. So maybe something potentially you could look at. Because, we're going to need some of these low price players to make money. Now, problem is that we're probably not going to make too much money if a guy's 250k. He's break even 71, so probably not going to lose that much. But has a good role. He could go up quite quickly. Melbourne, so Van Rooyen has kept his spot, which is good for owners, bad for those who skipped him because we were kind of thinking selection might have been the issue with him. But it looks like he's made it for another week. And against the Gold Coast, he probably kicked 4 goals and cement his spot for another week after that. But it remains to be seen. Weller out's probably the interesting one there with the injury. I didn't really hear much about that. Suppose it's something just with his knee, I guess. And then GWS. So Callum Ward is back in, and people were suggesting that Callum Ward was the replacement for was Ryan Angle was the replacement for Callum Ward, and this suggests that that's incorrect. And I actually think that Angle would have been a nice pickup to get this week instead of maybe Sturt, who people picked. But nevertheless, you can't really guess at these things. It looks like Angwin is playing that other wing to Callanan, and with Callum Wood in and him not being dropped, it probably stands well for him. You'd assume he's probably ahead of Toby Bedford as well. And I don't think they have much or many more players to come in after that. So even Xavier O'Halloran, I think he could probably get ahead of. So Daniel Lloyd, Riccardi, and Peatling looks to be the one that's been dropped. And I guess Rowson would also be breathing down his back in case he plays badly, but very good for those who want to try and go an Angwin now. Just the only thing is he could be dropped the next week. So looking at the Dogs, Libba is back. Gardner, not really one to look at. I think he's just scored really badly every game he's been in. Clean's been dropped as a sub. And if you want to get Libba, he's been playing really well, but he's named on the bench. But assume he's still going to get that nice CPA role. Fremantle, so they have dropped Sam Sturt, which is quite annoying for those who brought him in. You kind of thought that he was a bit safe, and this is without Nat Fyfe, which kind of means that his maybe doorway to entry is a bit hard now, which is a bit annoying because Fremantle aren't winning. So, I mean, I guess Tracy needs games as well, but I feel like there were other players that didn't play as well as Sturt that could have missed, like John miss. But I guess he's probably favoured by them. And Will Brodie also dropped. Just kind of seems to not really fit what they want in the middle. Frederick's early back from an adductor, which kind of hurts those who had Sturt because you probably thought that he was going to keep a spot for 2 to 3 weeks, but the early response to that injury seems to have pushed Sturt out. And maybe this is just a case of Fremantle wanting to go big in their forward line. I do note that Erasmus and O'Driscoll have kept the spot. So, it's just a bit annoying for those who bought in Sturt. Hawthorn, interestingly, have bought... Well, actually, GF's been managed and Bruce has been managed, which just seems like a bit of a throw by them. I don't know why a guy like GF has to be managed. He's pretty young. Don't think he's really had any injury issues of late. You can understand Bruce, but GF just seems like a bit of an interesting one. Good news is that Seamus Mitchell has kept his spot. We were kind of a little bit worried with the sub, but he's seemingly keeping his spot, which is good. And I think it was the wrong decision subbing him last week, but I think it's interesting because he was playing on Waitman, and then they swapped him for Scrimshaw, who's like a bigger body, but I don't think you really want that on Waitman, so a little bit unsure. But Weddle's also kept his spot on field, so it could be a nice downgrade option next week. And you'd probably suggest if Mitchell's going to get dropped, then Weddle's keeping his spot, or vice versa. So we'll probably be able to see that play out next week. Lloyd Meakin, so they are going for a 2 ruck combo to kind of try and combat Sean Darcy like they did last week to Tim English. Interestingly, it's kind of like a revenge game for me because it's his old team. And I think Sean and him will have played against each other quite a lot in simulations. So we'll probably know each other quite well. I don't know whether Darcy can score as well. Reeves did quite a good job with the tap outs against English, but um, Darcy's a monster, so I won't be surprised if he does play well. The good news here probably is maybe that Brody gets sub. Probably don't want Stet to have sub, but I mean, we have seen players come on as the sub and be able to cement themselves as in a role. So if there is an early injury, maybe you do want Sturt as a sub and being able to get into the game. Moving down to Port. So they brought 4 in onto the centre bench with Jonas, Marshall, Evans, and Demont. You would suggest that Marshall and Jonas are probably going to get game time. I'm not really sure. Well, Jonas is in already. I'm not really sure how they set this up now. I think what we're probably going to see is potentially, just looking at this, the potential, I'd say that Evans and Lord are probably definitely emergencies. Drew's playing, Rioli's playing, and then it's a pick of the last 4. You think if they're bringing Dumont in, he's probably playing. But I don't really know much about Port or much about Dumont, so maybe he's just been on the emergency list the whole time. It'd be pretty rough to drop Williams. I think he played really well last week, so I just can't see him losing that spot. Bonner was the sub last week, so it could be him in the emergencies, and maybe Burgoyne goes there as well. Essendon. So Alwyn Davey Jr. is back. So really good for those who held him. For those who didn't, bad luck. I can see the reason why you wouldn't have picked him. It did look like he was going to have a hard time getting back into the team, but I guess Essendon looked at what they had last week and decided it wasn't any good with their forward setup, especially if they're trying to play Stringer up into the midfield a bit more. Maybe they wanted a little bit more speed in there still. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with their bench here. I'm assuming that Phillips, Heppel will play, which leaves probably Hind as well will play, which leaves one spot between the last 5. I think Will Snelling played really well over those few weeks he was in. Kind of interesting they dropped him after those 2 weeks, but so I'd suggest it might be him. It actually might be Perkins because there isn't really a big forward outside of that, and I believe Perkins is a key forward. I don't really know much about Essendon, to be honest. I don't really watch much of their game. It was just interesting to see the way that they were playing Parrish and Merritt and their whole midfield. You would suggest that Merritt probably gets a tag this week as well, so maybe a week to hold off on him. Next is Collingwood. So Finlay McRae is finally getting a name in. Mason Cott's back, so that's good for Collingwood because they were probably missing a ruck a bit. But Billy Frampton was playing quite well, and then they may just decide to keep that. Harvey Harrison is new, and then Kruger obviously out injured, and Scott's back. So looking at the interchange, I would suggest that Chris, Markov, and Ginnivan are in. And then it's really interesting I assume Cox must be going to be an emergency. You would have named him on if you're going to play him. And then maybe like Bobby Hill, Finlay. Will Kelly was the sub last time, so he's probably sub. A little bit unsure there. I guess Will Kelly's more of a replacement for Kruger, so maybe it's Finlay, McRae, Bobby Hill, Harvey Harrison, and Mason Cox who miss. I'm unsure there. Very interesting interchange lineup. For Sydney, Corey Warner, McAndrew, who's been named there the whole time, Robbie Fox, McInerney. I think that's just the emergencies for them. Like Dylan Stevens has been omitted. That feels like it's just the emergencies. I feel like Campbell, McLean, Francis play, and then there'll be one spot left. McInerney's been emergency. He did get omitted. Sheldrick didn't play a very good game, so I wouldn't be surprised if he did get dropped back. Really can't see McAndrew getting a game. And Warner has played, but didn't play well in his one game, so maybe McInerney just comes back in. Sheldrick moves back to emergency and plays sub, but that'll be an interesting game. Ryan Clark's playing, which means he could get the tagging job on Dacos, so I'd probably stay away from a captain option on him. We saw what Keys was able to do to him, but Keys is more of an athlete than probably what Clark is, so Maybe that was better. Speaking about that time. And or maybe it'll be better having Clark, who's not so much of an athlete, and that will help him. And then last of all is North Melbourne, who have a lot of ins and not so many outs. Well, they got 3 outs, 3 injuries. Callum Coleman Jones and Power. Now, the very interesting thing here is Davies Uniacke is named to play, so that's good for those holders. So he must have passed the test. But what's really annoying is that Zeebel's been named at a forward flank, and actually Sheezer's name there as well. Is this just a little bit of a mix-up? I think it is. I think this will get fixed later on. Surely Perez and Drury are going to that forward line, and Sheezel and Zeebel will move up to the halfback flank. That's what we want to see, because if we don't, it's real alarm bells. You do not want Zeebel and Sheezel in that forward line. And but the good news is everyone's going to be stuck in that Sheezel issue, and 30% are probably stuck with the Zeebel issue. I suggest this is just no good tomfoolery with the setup of the team names, and I assume this will get sorted out tomorrow when they finalise them. For St Kilda, Vitale, Sharman, and Campbell, I really don't think any of them get on. Vitale maybe, but they've shown a tendency not to play him. It's interesting. The rest of it looks not too bad. Looks pretty much how they've lined up the whole year. I'd say the interchange is going to be Clark, Butler. Actually interesting. Well, Patton and Cordy were already playing, weren't they? So probably those 4, and then the 4 down the bottom are going to be the emergencies, I'd suggest. But maybe Bartel makes his way in there. I just don't really see it happening. So that is the teams, and as you can see, there were some interesting changes there. Some interesting things we need to think about. A few rookies have been named. So if we go to players, have a look here. Want selected to play as well. So what have we got in the bubble? So Chincotta is the guy you want to be picking up. This week, he's definitely number 1 target as a rookie, 102,400, so real low price, lowest price you can get, and just got great scoring, averaging 77, can be put on field, and just lock and load him and definitely play him. So we got moving down. Obviously, we talked about Simpson. Tika would be nice if he was a ruck forward. I feel like the ruck, just him being a ruck, kind of loses the value in him. Angwin, discussed. Atkins could be an interesting one if we really need someone. He does have the tendency to only score well in absolute drummings, which last week was. So maybe just definitely hold out a week. Don't go early. Stephen Woody's here. Didn't really light it on fire. Mitch Nevitt's actually interesting. So he's just not expected to go up a lot. Is that what we're saying? Because he is on the bubble by the looks. So 30-point average doesn't look great, and suggests he won't keep his spot once players are back. Weddle had a horrible score last week. I was actually really surprised that, Mitchell scored more than him and only played 2 and a bit quarters. So very interesting that Weddle kept that. I guess there was a lot of hype about him before the preseason. They're probably trying to give him a little bit of a run here, but he could be out next week. Tracy, only a forward. It's a little bit annoying. On the bubble next week, only had a 17. Erasmus moved in actually as well. He came in as the sub. Looks like they're trying to get that bigger body midfielder in there. Bit annoying that he's 230k because he really didn't play that much last week. And I don't see why you'd probably go him over over Rory Atkins, because Atkins has got the 89 in his system, whereas there's only the 5 in Erasmus, but I guess that will go out pretty quickly. Still seems like one you probably want to miss. We look at his break-even. His break-even is 84, so he could easily go under that and then be looking at losing money next week. So maybe you could pick him up at 200k and him actually be an all right, interesting pick. And it looks like we have got a few, yeah, low price rookies as well. So Sharp, Berry, and Drury. Personally, probably like none of them that great. Like Sharp, job security just not there. I don't really know about his scoring profile. Berry, you suggest, doesn't have a great job security either. Like you got guys like Pete Miller out, Constable probably written down his neck as well. Like not for the 4 position, but like for a position in the team. Connor Blakely was playing really well in the reserves as well. I think he had 36 on the weekend. Constable like 31 on a goal. I don't know why he doesn't get picked, but I don't know what he's done. And then Drury has the naming on the back line, but as I said, I don't think that's correct. I think he's going to be put onto like a full pocket, full flank. He could be really good. Now, I did hear today that Taron Thomas is potentially back in the VFL. So, that's probably a guy who could just replace Drew straight away. So, you'd want to see some very, very good play by him this week to enable him to kind of cement a role. But even that just looks like it could be a bit of a hard one for him to lock down. So, anyway, that's enough about players. Going to the team, so I don't think we're going to make many changes from here. It's good to have Davey back, a little bit more money. We're just going to ride green. So our trade outs were Draper, Cotter, Taranto for Power. I'm happy with. I think that English is going to go down a little bit over the next few weeks, so we can kind of ride that out. We could go Gorn. That's also an option at 500. He'll probably be 500-ish, which could be something we look at. I mean, obviously we can move Radically back forward and just bring Gorn in. He may get forward status, which could be appealing, but we could just wait on that. Like, I don't mind waiting on that. Otherwise, the team is fairly set. We're going to go Toronto VC because he's against West Coast. And, I mean, I was on Darcy as the captain, but with the 2 rucks, especially me coming in, it kind of puts a little bit of a doubt in your mind that maybe we just take Bont instead in a kind of a rivalry game. Like, that's a bit of a rivalry game. The Bulldogs GWS from 2016. A lot of those guys were around then where the Bulldogs beat GWS in that close final where they came out. I think GWS like 4. It must have been 3rd or 4th that year. And the Bulldogs came from like 8th, beat West Coast, who were 5th. And then they beat, 3rd or 2nd, which must have been GWS that year at Canberra in like a last second game and then won the premiership. So what could have been for them? Otherwise, I probably won't be doing any videos over the weekend. I'm going to be going away to Melbourne, so catching a few games there, catching up with some mates. So it'll be good to see those games, see some players up close that I don't normally get to see. Hopefully everything goes well this weekend. We get a nice big score, kind of get those ranks going again. But it's going to be all down to really nailing this VC early. As I said at the start of the video, if you could give us a like, give us a subscribe, that would be great. Really helps us, and helps getting more videos seen and building more of a community for us here. Obviously, I really enjoy answering your questions. I want to be able to answer more. So if you want to comment on videos, maybe if I get enough of them, I'll save them for a video. But otherwise, good luck this weekend. Make sure you get Chin Cotter in, and we'll see you next week.